This Day in Sports History. And welcome back to This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Network. And how about those Minnesota Timberwolves moving on to the Western Conference Finals for the second year in a row and just the third time in their history? Let's go back to what happened on this day in 2004 when the T-Wolves advanced to the Western Conference Finals for the first time. This was the Western Conference semifinals between Minnesota and the Sacramento Kings. The Wolves were the top seed in the West after winning 58 games that season. They broke a streak of 7 consecutive eliminations in the first round of the playoffs by beating the Denver Nuggets in 5, and then it was the 4th seed Kings as the next roadblock. Kevin Garnett had been spectacular that season, leading the league in points scored and rebounds, and he was named league MVP. He kept that production going in the playoffs, averaging a double-double of 24 points and 15 rebounds, but he turned the knob up to 11 for Game 7 on this day. Oh, and it was his birthday. He probably didn't eat any cake during the day, but he blew out 28 candles on one for sure. He did tend to feast on the Kings, though, especially gobbling up rebounds. 4 of his best 5 rebounding efforts came against Sacramento that season. But he was filling up the bucket on this night.
Rotation to Hassel and across the lane and out to Kevin Garnett. Garnett looks sharp. He has started 2 of 3.
Despite his hot start, Garnett cooled off a little bit and only had 9 by the break. Fortunately for them, the Kings were as cold as international falls in January in the first half, and Minnesota was able to build a 10-point lead at the break. They thawed out a good bit in the second half and cut the T-Wolves' advantage to 2 midway through the fourth. And that's when it became Garnett's game.
Those 2 positions for Sacramento. Kevin Garnett! Shot clock is down to 5. And Miller's got Garnett way outside. Oh, what a shot by Kevin Garnett!
KG scored 14 of his game-high 32 in the fourth quarter to go along with 21 rebounds. Sacramento had 2 good looks to tie the game and send it to overtime, but could not find the bottom of the bucket. Minnesota won 83-80 and advanced to the Western Conference Finals for the first time as a franchise, and it was a nice little birthday present with a big ticket.
It feels great to win, especially on my birthday. 7 years I've been knocked out, and now we're going to the Western Conference Finals, and I feel pretty good.
This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you or that special someone in your life. Check them out at sterlingsoap.com. On this day in 1974, the World Hockey Association was wrapping up its second year, and just a little background on the World Hockey Association. The WHA was to the NHL what the ABA had been to the NBA, and in fact was started by the same group of people. And side note, if you remember back to my episode when I talked about the formation of the ABA, I talked about how the guys who came up with that idea for a league were actually initially trying to get a football team up and running in the AFL. But the AFL-NFL merger happened before they could get that done, so they started looking around the sports landscape to see how they could use the funds that they had raised and said, we don't know anything about hockey, let's start a basketball league. And yet that same group of guys came back a few years later and started a rival hockey league, which again was the WHA. And just like the ABA, it was like living life inside of a tornado. Teams moving to different towns, teams folding mid-year, a chaotic existence. And year 2 had been a very wild year in the WHA. There was a big push for teams to make an instant splash, and the easiest way to do that was to throw huge amounts of money at NHL big names to get them to switch leagues. The Winnipeg Jets pulled off the biggest coup in year 1, signing Bobby Hull to a $1 million contract. And in year 2, it was the Houston Aeros who recruited all-time great Gordie Howe out of retirement to lace up the skates once again. The lure from Houston was the chance to play with his 2 sons, Mark and Marty. He said yes, and so in 1973, the Houston Aeros signed Mark and Marty and gave Gordie a contract in June of 1973. Even at the age of 45, Gordie showed he still had some moves. In the first preseason game, Gordie scored 18 seconds after the puck drop. Now, he wasn't the fastest skater, but he was still physical, and of course, he could still score. If Gordie went into the corner against another guy for the puck, well, he was going to come out with it. He scored 31 goals and assisted 69 others that season, giving him 100 points, third best in the league. He was named the league MVP that season, too. Now, the Aeros were the best team in the league as well, with 43 wins that year, and so that leads us back to where we started. On this night, it was Game 4 of the Avco Cup between Houston and the Chicago Cougars. The Cougars had beaten the top 2 seeds in the East to get to the finals, but they ran into a buzzsaw in the first 3 games of the series against the Aeros. Using their potent scoring and great goaltending of Don McLeod, like they had all season, Houston won the game 6-2 to complete the 4-game sweep to lift the Avco Cup in 1974. They only lost 2 games of the 14 postseason ones they played. For Gordie Howe, who had not won a championship in a long time, it was special.
But in the interviews, they're pouring the champagne on your head, and I was trying to take in the scene because the joy which I can see through other eyes, sometimes you can feel that inside. So I'm sitting there, and then the camera's thrown in front of my face with a mic, and champagne hit me in the eye, and boy, did that burn. I said, it's almost easier to drink this stuff. But it was, I don't know, it doesn't happen too often. There's only one winner, and when you win it, I think you should really cheer. Because my last winning season was in 1955, and it's been a long time coming.
On that same night in Philadelphia, it was Game 6 of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs between the Flyers and the Boston Bruins. After dropping the first game of the series, the Flyers had won the next 3 behind Bernie Perron's excellent goaltending. They dropped Game 5 in a game marred by fights and penalties, but still had an opportunity to close out the series at home. Perron was strong once again in this one, needing only 1 goal from his offense.
Face off to the left of Gilbert. Same people on the ice. McLeish against Shepard. McLeish controls to Dupont. Dupont throws it and scores!
Perron turned away all 30 Bruins shots, including the potential game tire with 3 minutes left. Ken Hodge unleashed a laser slap shot, but Perron made an incredible kick save to deflect it away and keep the sheet clean.
And Hodge on. The pass to Hodge. Hodge shoots. Big save by Bernie Perron on a low pass from Hodge. Rebound to Barber. Barber to Christopher.
Bobby Orr got called for a penalty right after that, which negated much of a chance for the Bruins to find the equalizer, and the Flyers were able to count down the final seconds until pandemonium broke out in the Spectrum.
Seconds left in the game. Shoots it down the ice. Perron makes the save. Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup.
The Flyers became the first team from the 1968 expansion to win a Stanley Cup. Also, it was the first to win the Cup on home ice since the Bruins had done it back in 1970. Perron was named Series MVP and given the Conn Smythe Trophy for his efforts in goal. The Flyers' first Cup win set off a huge celebration in Philadelphia, the likes that had not been seen since the announcement of the end of World War II. And just like the Aeros did in Houston, the Flyers would repeat as Cup champs in '75. In 1991, race car driver Willie T. Ribbs became the first black driver to qualify for the Indianapolis 500. Ribbs was down to his last opportunity, and he was already out of engines. He came to the Brickyard with a shoestring budget of $350,000 in an effort to make the starting grid, but in the process of practice and other qualifying efforts ended up blowing the 3 engines that they brought with them. Pleas were put out around the garage for a spare one, and up until the second to last day, they couldn't find one. As the final qualifying day, called Bump Day, dawned, though, another Buick engine race team offered Ribbs a spare. In the morning session, though, the team had more problems, blowing the turbocharger. Another wild scramble in the garage found a replacement for that, and he was down to his final chance. He knew it was now or wait till next year or maybe never again. When he hit the first turn of his qualifying lap, he found the speed he had been missing, and the engine held together. With a speed of 217.358 miles per hour, Ribbs qualified for the 1991 Indy 500 on the 10th row of the grid. Unfortunately, race day went a lot like his pre-Indy race went. His engine gave up the ghost on lap 9, and he finished 32nd out of 33 drivers. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. In 1989, Pepsi traded soda for Soviet ships. Pepsi had excess syrup and bottling supplies stuck in Russia. With the Soviet economy in freefall, the company could not claim profits, nor could it pay the import surcharges on its ingredients. And so Pepsi and the Soviet government came to a deal. Pepsi would trade the syrup and supplies trapped in a warehouse for 17 submarines, 3 warships, and a few patrol boats that were rotting away in port. Pepsi hoped to repurpose the ships or sell them to interested buyers. However, the company soon realized that they did not have the infrastructure to actually pull that off, and the ships had no inherent value other than for scrap metal. The trade, once seen as a win for Pepsi, proved to be more of an anchor on their balance sheet instead. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.